enjoy democracy.
What is it you enjoy about democracy?
Okay, so
Question though, are we
What is it?
stating this or
Yes.
trying to...
you're restating it to recover information, and we're learning a way to do this with normalizations, which is to do with, you see, look, you know, it's intense the amount of times that somebody can turn something, just like give it a word, like a noun, and never talk about actual process. So there's great value in turning something that somebody's just like used a word to describe a whole process without talking at all about the process. Okay, there's great value in using that word in a process way with the person, because that will uncover the lost information.
So for the next one, would you say first, what does it mean to you to be democratic?
No, maybe being democratic is the verb, right? What would you say here specifically with this? I enjoy democracy.
How do you enjoy
Being democratic.
What specifically do you enjoy the democratic process?
Okay, you might want to know what. If you were just simply going to restate it as a verb rather than as a normalisation, how would you do it? I've said here, I enjoy democracy. What could you say? I enjoy being democratic. What is it?
Yeah, then you
What is it that you enjoy about being democratic?
What is it about democracy that you enjoy doing?
It's a roundabout way. It is a way. It is a way because you're turning it. But however, no, because you're putting other words in. Just simply changing it to democratic. Dave.
What was wrong with the democratic process?
Let's
Then
do
as a
it
verb
now.
process, what specifically do you enjoy about the democratic process?
Yes, you could say that.
I mean,
You're adding other words to it.
kind
Yeah, you could say that. And you could add other words to it. Yeah, sure. If you were just simply looking at that, then there's a way simply to say, what is it that you enjoy about being democratic?
It's still a
Yes, to be
nominalization.
democratic is pretty strict.
Because it's not a verb, it's an adverb.
Say it again.
It's an adverb when you use democratic process.
No, it's an
For
adjective.
me, anytime the verb to be
Democratic.
comes in, it really bakes
All
things
processes
out.
Say it again.
Whenever the verb to be comes in, it tends, for me, it becomes very vague. You say something is, or I'm being something that...
Okay, we're getting away from the purpose of the idea of turning a noun, okay, easily with your client and yourself back into a process, because it's the process that we care about in uncovering lost information, okay? That's the only reason why you would want to make sure that you turn a noun into a process word in some way. Use it in a process way to get that lost information.
Let me ask you this. The word democracy is a nominalization.
Yes.
Okay. So really the only way that word can be a verb is the democratization of something. Then that is a process.
That's a noun, kind of, not normalisation too, in a way.
That's like
Okay.
communication.
If we follow...
You have to use it in a way that is uncovering the process. You have to use it in a way that's uncovering what the process is. If you can do that, then you are turning this noun back into an action. And that's the thing, you see, we're working on this plane of actions, not the abstractness of democracy. But what is it specifically about being democratic do you enjoy?
I like to vote.
Okay, so okay.
So this formula for this, which is pretty simple, if we're just going to keep it simple.
Yes.
Transform nominalization. To transform a nominalization back into a process word, use it as a verb.
Use it as a verb. Okay, I resent your question.
Being resentful.
What is it about questioning, my questioning, that you resent? Questioning is the verb. Okay. My confusion has a tendency to create fear.
What is it that's confusing?
I'm fearful of being confused.
Yes.
What is it?
What's the
What is it that's
nominalization?
confusing?
Okay, confusion is a normalisation.
Or
And fear is a nominalisation too. So I would underline confusion and I would underline fear, and I would turn both of those words into verbs. Okay, so how would you do
are
that?
fearing what about what I'm doing that's
confused makes you be afraid?
Yes, that's good.
What about being confused makes you feel or be afraid?
Yes, that would get at it.
When I am confused, I'm fearful.
Are you
I tend to
fearful?
be afraid of being confused.
Are you fearful when you're confused?
When I'm confused, I have a tendency.
No, the person's saying that they are already.
When
Okay.
I'm confused, I have a tendency to be fearful.
Okay, you're talking as if you were the person saying this. Okay, underline the word, okay, that's the nominalisation, and change it back into a process word. So I would underline confusion, and I would underline fear, and then what could I say?
How does your confusion make you fearful?
Yes.
How does your
Or how are you fearful of being confused?
Yes, that's good. Okay, fearful is a verb. Okay. And what was the other one? Fearful. Confused. Okay, confused is the verb. All right. My pain is overwhelming me.
Pain is the
nominalisation. Okay, Dave.
Pain or
Let's see if Dave, you can do this. My pain is overwhelming. Pain is the nominalisation.
What specifically is overwhelming? No, what specifically is painful to you?
Is painful.
Painful to you?
Yes, okay. All right. What specifically is it that's painful and overwhelming you? Okay. I have a lot of frustration.
what is frustrating you.
Yeah. Okay. Capitalism is good. What about being capitalistic is good? Okay. So there's a little thing there that says if you can't put it in a wheelbarrow, it's a nominalisation. In other words, if someone says the democracy that we have, okay, so the democracy is like something like an object, and if you couldn't put democracy in a wheelbarrow and wheel it around, then it absolutely is a nominalisation.
You know, the thing that was confusing me is that a lot of these words we didn't actually turn them back into verbs as much as we turned them into something other than something you couldn't put in a wheelbarrow.
Okay, give us an example of a moment where we didn't turn it into a verb.
Okay, like being capitalistic is good.
Okay, so
capitalistic is not a verb; it's an adjective or an adverb, or I'm not good at my English, but I know it's not a verb. So I guess the important thing is that as it exists as the word capitalism, it's a nominalisation because you can't.
Isn't it an adverb?
Capitalism is a noun.
Capitalistic. Being capitalistic.
Well, being is the
Yeah.
verb.
You know,
Being.
that group of people are capitalistic. Now, isn't that an adverb?
Adverb.
Capitalistic.
Capitalistic
Right.
is an adverb.
Right,
Yeah.
that's a process. It's
Right.
actually
That's what I'm
involved
saying.
in...
It's not actually a verb. It's an adverb. So it's not so important to turn it actually into a verb as it is to get it out of the form that it's in, which is a noun.
Yeah, you're putting it in
The
the
main-
verbal part of the sentence.
So in order for it to be a process word, it doesn't actually have to be a pure verb. It can be an adverb or.
Yes.
So that's the point.
Right.
It's
A
combined
process
with
word
being
can be an adverb. Right.
I think it's combined with being.
Well, that's a preposition. That's an object of the
It's
preposition.
an adverb.
Being
It's
capitalistic is an object of the preposition.
The main thing is that you would be able to turn it back into a process
Yeah, that's
word.
what I was
The clarification is flagging the issue.
Yes.
Okay, so the one thing that I would say here, right, that you heard was that it's turning something that's person saying is a noun, right, back into a process. And we're begging the question that it's not a verb. An adverb is a type of verb, okay? The main thing is simply what I said, and that's that to turn the noun back into a process, bring it back and use it in a process way. is a way to uncover the lost information.
I think for me, nominalizations are the one of the ones that I used to feel lost about, because when people use nominalizations, it's real easy to go into trance. And I think that if I listen to a whole string of nominalizations, it's like I'm kind of like, it's like I'm recognizing now what's been occurring. And this is also the way to put somebody in trance, just use a bunch of these strung together without anything connecting them, or any verbs or any...
Yes, because to provide meaning, the person has to attach to their ongoing experience inside the meaning, because on the outside possibly the meaning is not being provided. So it's taking the person back into themselves to find understanding. To do a transderivational search for information, is kind of like leaving the present tense.
Right.
Whilst you're saying stuff, then that's been going in at an unconscious level, because you've occupied the conscious mind with something.
It's a way for the person to disassociate from
Yeah.
their feelings.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
that last one, you just said, how does being capitalistic create goodness?
What is it about being capitalistic? What is it about being capitalistic is good?
But then you have to track good, don't you?
Huh?
What does good mean?
Yes, you might. That's a missing performative. Well, it depends on what it is that you challenge. You might get around to challenging both of those things, but you might need to only challenge one kind of to get what you want. So you always have a reason, actually, as you're moving toward which is it that you want to challenge, Dave?
You said create stuff. Isn't the stuff nominalization?
Stuff.
Stuff?
Create stuff, yes.
How would you change stuff into a verb?
What is it that we're talking about specifically?
You said you're speaking of something we create stuff. And stuff is nominalization.
Right.
I mean, what stuff?
Yes, because then I would need to use an example specifically, okay, so that I wouldn't have to use the word stuff. But the main thing is, if I was to do that, then I'm getting into content, my own content. And there's a way for us to provide the structure with the use of the word stuff. So, nominalizations are also useful, okay? And deleting material is also useful sometimes. It's really depending on whether there's a need actually for us to move forward to disclose what it is that's there, to mend the net or the map, actually, if there was a need for that. So the deal may be all that you're in need of saying, or actually, what do you say? You don't use the word charge, but there's another word that you use, or expense. What was the word that you used? Investment?
Investment.
Okay, investment. So simply your investment. Would you say that? What other words do you use? You would never use the word charge. Excellent. Now, what is the word that you would use?
What's the cause? I'd say investment.
Okay, investment. You would say investment. Right. Well, investment is a nice way for us both to understand what we're really meaning. However, if I didn't, then it would be a way for me. How would you challenge that? When I would say to you, I think this investment is going to be excellent for your shop. And how could you challenge that? Nominalization. I think this investment is going to be good for your shop. Okay, now, if you wanted to challenge it, it would be because you were not knowing what investment is.
Exactly.
Okay, otherwise, if you knew what investment was, fine. Okay? Okay, the main reason why, Dave, is that if we were just simply use a word like investment is to create ease. Because unless we were able to generalise, we would be always caught up in the pedantics and always having to explain what it is that's there. And if we're understanding what it is that's there, then we can use words to move forward in a way without having to disclose the content necessarily, because that's already there. Are you understanding that?
This morning seems so easy, so simple, and so logical.
This morning?
This morning, when I read this morning, the
Yes.
and going through it, and the examples, it's so simple, so logical. But through the dissertation about it and the discussion, it's just become very muddled.
Okay, what is it specifically about this discussion right now that has become muddled
The
for
dust is
you?
settling again.
Huh?
The dust is settling again. Let's don't.
Yeah. Okay. Actually, just the one thing about this is simply that actually, it's sometimes, like I've heard people kind of think that, oh, nominalisation is bad. It must be kind of bad, you know. And that's not the way to interpret this information. That there's a way for normalisation, presuppositions and missing referential indexes and unspecified verbs. All of this stuff, there's a way for it to be used.
Right now, I'm saying normalization is an overgeneralization. And I need to be more specific to understand what you're generalizing.
Okay, what did I say? Simply.
About normalization.
What did you say simply?
Simply. What did I just say? If I'm running my stuff while you're talking, I'm not going to hear what you say, and on a level for recall, and I'm asking you now to be in a state where you have the ability to recall this stuff. Now, if I say it again, you'll easily remember what it was that I said, because you're using association for memory. I simply said that using these words also has a value, and it's noticing how to use these words, in fact, in a way that's forwarding ourselves.
A good example would be
It wasn't necessarily that.
like God. You could probably go to each person in this room and they would have a different concept of God, but we know when we say God, we mean something that's specific to each person. So it's really easy to use that terminology and talk to any religion, unless, of course, it's somebody who believes in only one type of interpretation.
Okay, so in that situation, there would be a way for us to challenge this nominalisation, God. Otherwise, you know, it's okay that that's being used because we're understanding what the person's meaning by the word God, which is a nominalisation.
This is abstract.
Huh?
This
No, really, you're right.
So,
what specifically is abstract?
No, what you said earlier, it's not, I understand.
excellent. Okay. All right.
David, in your experience, when you challenge statements that are violating the meta model, what kind of behavior follows in that person that you're doing this with, or who's being kind of like asked to be more specific?
Mostly persons realising that the picture is able to emerge, and that the picture is emerging. It would depend, though, you see, if somebody has said something which is just very abstract, then maybe when you get into what that abstraction actually is, you know, I mean, it's possible that the person may feel uncomfortable, or they may feel a degree of comfort, depending on to what degree they have a program of or the way that they learn. Because if someone is focused on their mistake, okay, or they even have this word mistake in their vocabulary, or they have this word fault, or they have this word blame, you know, we've got to rise above this level to be able to be on another level that we can communicate with each other. Because to me, I don't have this word fault in my vocabulary. I don't believe it exists. Wrong. I don't believe this word exists. Fault. I don't believe this word exists. To me, something that occurs, I'm not looking for fault. I don't sense fault. But I know that many people are processing things through, first of all, their self-worth. Somebody, just to give you an example, we had someone stay at our place for a little while, and they put up these photos, and the photos really were unresourceful. They really were unresourceful. And so Annie, when this person was away, took the photos down and put a couple of other things up there. And so that when Greg came back home, the first thing that was interesting for Greg in the way he was moving, as far as what had happened, was to process this through his self-worth. That something about what Annie had done about the photos was going to first be processed through his self-worth. And underneath everything, what was of concern to Greg was his self-worth, not actually what it was about the photos. So it wasn't ever getting actually at that information, which was the fact of the thing, before it was to process it first through self-worth. Many, many people are doing this. Do you follow that?
I do it.
I do too.
Yes.
How would you...
Okay, Dave, do you follow that?
There, but as far as the question, did you answer your question? You did?
That's a model that we've had in the past.
We are what we do.
Okay, are you following what it was? Are you following what it was that we just said?
I was following his question about how, and maybe I was going in from another angle, how a specific person that you're counseling with or working with, talking with, how they react when you challenge the way they...
as many ways as you can imagine, there are similarities between us, and there's many also mannerisms and that's characteristics that are different. You will get all manner of ways that people are going to react. Some people won't even hear what you say. Some people really will have heard. Some people will process it through their self-worth. Some people have risen above this level of self-worth and have not got an ego in this. And then, okay.
And then tied to what you were saying.
Okay. All right. I'd just like to talk just a tiny bit about congruency, and then we'll finish for today. Okay, so if I said to you that you don't understand, okay, what is that? Someone? Incongruent. What kind of incongruency is it?
Doesn't jive. You're shaking your head yes, and say you don't understand.
It's unspecific.
But it's simultaneous. It's simultaneous.
Totally contradictory.
Okay, so there's different types of incongruency. Okay, so if I say you don't understand and I'm nodding my head, that's an example of a simultaneous incongruency. Okay?
Oh.
Alright, now a sequential incongruency, what is a sequential incongruency? Who can give me an example of it? Give us an example of a sequential incongruency. Dave?
Sequential?
Sequential incongruency.
Incongruency?
In other words, I just gave you an example of a simultaneous incongruency. I said you don't understand. Okay.
I would think a sequential incongruence would be saying, yes, I'm really anxious to do it, as you back away after saying that.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so that's a sequential incongruency. All right. What is it that creates congruency?
Physiology with the same intent as your words.
Yes. Yes, okay. What is it truly about the structure of this that I put here that enables this to be congruent? Okay, so the things around it are parallel and supporting this. So this act is not congruent by itself unless it's been supported before. The very thing just before it, if it supports this, then it's more likely that this is congruent. But it's still not yet congruent.
And is the thing after it?
Yes, okay. If what happens after it also supports this moment, then this moment is congruent. So what about the people, okay, that you are knowing who say something like this, say, I like you, but. That's an example of a sequential incongruency, isn't it? Okay. If you watch someone now, this little piece is important. If you hear somebody and you watch them and they're going like this, they're saying, you don't understand. Okay. What do you do about that simultaneous incongruency?
I don't give them as much respect or much...
Possibly. Yes. Possibly, but then I would be reversing it. Okay? Because I said you don't understand. Okay. Okay, what is it that you sense when somebody says to you that you don't understand? Okay. How do you interpret this? What
confusion there somewhere.
You understand. You understand.
On some levels.
I understand that you don't understand.
No, they think you really do understand.
Okay. What Richard said is the general way that it would be interpreted. In other words, I said you don't understand. And what did you say?
You understand.
Okay. So mostly, as Bateson, with the classification of logical typing, led us to believe that the body movement itself was reflecting some deeper aspect of self. And what I've come to tell you is that that's incorrect. That one is not meta to the other if they're happening simultaneously together.
Well, in this particular instance, also there's the don't in there, which is there's nothing in the primary. Okay,
so when two things happen simultaneously in the past, the person went with the body reaction that was occurring as thinking that's more meta, more primary to what it is that's said. And what I'm saying is when you see something happening simultaneously like this, all right, that one is not meta to the other. Okay.
I might interpret
Okay,
that.
so then you will choose the one that you want to highlight the incongruency. So I'm a father, and I just finished saying to you that I think my son's really good at football. So now I've said that he is really good at football, but I've said it in a gruff manner. Okay, so now what would it be that you would do with that? Which is it that you would want to mirror? You would pick which one you would want.
Try to mirror the words.
Okay, you might mark out the incongruency by noticing the gruffness. Okay, but the main thing is probably the father really does think his son is good at football. Okay, on one level, yet he is saying it that there's something else there that's probably equal somewhat, that he's thinking there's a need for improvement as well.
When you said it, you closed your eyes, closed down.
Yes, right, so I said it in a gruff manner. Okay, even though the words were, probably excellent words, the way that I said it was in a really gruff way. So there's there's incongruency there. And so the one that you would choose to mark out will be the one that enables you to move this person forward. Okay, that's all. You simply, not that one is meta to the other. The father may seriously think that his son is not very good at football.
Can I ask you a question? Before earlier, I've gotten the impression that to say don't, it would be a good idea to eliminate don't from your language. Is that something?
Here's what I would say. It's a good idea to frame things positively.
A minute ago you were saying, I don't believe in fault and I don't believe. So it would be difficult to frame that in another way. Is it okay to use it if you're trying to express something very specific?
Yes, absolutely. Understanding the meaning of this, actually. Because if this, that's an okay, so it's a good idea for us to learn how to use this information. And this question relates to this. Framing things positively leads us to whole brain functioning. Framing things negatively leads us to limited brain function, as a general rule. Now Now, sometimes, because we are living in a world where people are involving things that may not be real, sometimes that we are in need of addressing this, and the only way that we can address this ourselves is to pace something that's occurring out there, is to speak it. The main thing is, what is the purpose of the process, and is it leading us, to choice, having choice rather than acting compulsively, and is it leading to forwarding us? That's the main thing.
Because I've tried to remember that in my language, and sometimes I run into that predicament that I feel I have to use the word "don't" there, and I've been working around that myself, so I use the word "don't" and haven't. And
right. So less and less, more and more that you'll be framing things positively, realising that that's what creates whole brain functioning. Simply you just choose to use those words that are positive, and to even focus on examples that are positive examples rather than anything other than positive examples.
You mentioned earlier that you use a lot of nouns from one side and verbs from the other. So in your just in speaking and talking, rather than using nominalizations, you're using more specific verbs and nouns. That is leaning toward more whole brain functioning?
Yes. If you are using verbs and nouns, then that's one of the secrets of creating whole brain functioning. Because if somebody's simply using verbs or using nouns, they are using only one hemisphere or the other.
Don't be concerned about confusion a little earlier. A little confused after you can learn something.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I'll just share something with you, okay, Dave, so that you'll smile when somebody's confused, okay? Because this is a strategy. See, confusion is not necessarily by itself a limitation. No. Confusion, mostly when confusion occurs, that's a strategy. I can share a number of ways how confusion helps move through. Often when there's confusion, that's how learning occurs. Yes, in other words, something is reset. Something is reset. So something that was occurring actually was excellent, that you are allowing your free behaviour to be the path, because we got to a place. We truly got to a place as a result of that being there, and that was important that was there in that moment. Okay, so sometimes you may, like something may not make sense, right? Okay, and you've tried a couple of tacts. Now confusion could be a strategy. The next time that it comes up, you may really mess it up, make it much even worse. So it's really confusing. Possibly to scramble the brain. The one thing about all of this is that how do you recognise when the brain is on record? And what kinds of things do you do yourself to create that situation? Because mostly it's possible that people are dissociated or their brain is not on play and record. So one way that you can get the brain to be on record is to scramble, and we do this ourselves inside actually. We scramble things that are there because they don't make sense, and then out of this rises the opportunity for learning. But one more thing, look, out there you see people leading a regular life. Every single thing about their day is very regular. There's nothing out of the ordinary. When something comes along that's out of the ordinary, these people don't know how to handle that. And mostly I would say that there probably is something beyond this set that's to do with regularity. And that when we go to the fringe in ourselves, generally this is about learning. These people who have very regular set, if someone has long hair, or if the father stays home to look after the children, or something that's out of the ordinary, this sometimes is not so accepting, because people have got used to something which is like very regular for them. And that's okay, that's okay to live life this way. However, I think it's kind of limiting. Yeah. It's we are much expanded in ourselves when we do allow ourselves to go to the fringe, and that we're interested sometimes to take others also to the fringe. And somebody in the family sometimes sanctions the conversation from going any further. Sometimes when this happens, this person does this because they have not got the skill to handle possibly a conversation that goes below the surface. So they sanction it, and in that way nobody learns. You know, that's quite a common thing, in fact, that happens in families. Okay, so I think that whatever it is that's there, there's a way for it to, you know, come to some fruition. Usually, there's a way for it, I think. All right. Okay, you'll want to look at dissociation. Look at all the information that we have on dissociation tomorrow, tonight, because we're going to do we'll do a piece of change work involving dissociation. It's kind of in the 80s, is it, or something? 78. 78, this is the Practitioner's Manual. 78, 79, and look at page 80. 78, 79 and 80. On 80 there's a change history. Make sure that you look over the meta model. There's a page actually here, I think it's in your Technician's Manual, page 108, you know, which has like a violation, and then kind of what you would do to challenge that, and then what it is that you can predict from having challenged that. So
the 78, 79, 80 was in which one? The Practitioner?
Yeah.
To me, that explains it more better for me.
Yes, the only thing is, new behaviour generator might not be true. You know, reframing is much more specific and broad.
Specific and broad.
Because the reframe might not necessarily be a new behaviour. You know, maybe seeing something in a different light, and that might not necessarily be a new behaviour generator. Okay. But it could be.
You know, I'm a little bit interested in looking at when you reframe something, you just put a new frame on it. The picture itself doesn't change.
Yes, you provide a context which creates meaning for, you know, like for instance SH1T, this is good to grow things from. That's a reframe. Like a quick reframe, like a punch reframe, which is important, like if there's emotional content, then if you go over something like logically, the emotional content kind of gets there. So there's some ways of moving through things without having to, you know, bypassing conscious objection. So somebody's having a nervous, you know, they're really having trouble or something or other, and you know people have been talking to them about this and they've really been upset about it, and then they come to see you and you say, well, I think you're having a nervous breakthrough. See, that's a punch reframe. Person goes, oh, you know, this person's just about to tell me I'm having a nervous breakthrough. Oh, that's, you know, through on the end, that's... So the person was thinking nervous breakdown and you said through. That's a punch reframe, providing a context for something that creates meaning for what's inside it. Okay. We're going to learn the swish pattern today. That's how to go from one cue to another. How to set up a pattern where some response that's happening, that's creating some unwanted behaviour, can trigger you into some behaviour that you want. So we're going to be learning the swish pattern as well today. I thought just before we start, I'm going to share a couple stories with you, and then I would like for us just to spend a tiny bit of time talking a little about the meta model and talking a little bit about rapport. So, last month I said to you that I would share a story about evolution, and so we can go back about 12 million years ago. 12 million years ago, people were, well, there was a knuckle-walking person, which kind of seems to be the link, and this person was called Ramapithecus. Ramapithecus could carry things in their hands and that, and they were, using rudimentary tools and things. Mostly they would run on all fours though, relatively, and they could carry things by turning their hands over this way. And they were more or less kind of a little knuckle walking. And between 12 million years ago and 3.7 million years ago, the Earth was covered by vast seas during this period of time. And there's an area north of the Rift Valley. It's about 50 miles wide by 200 miles long. It's thought that this is the area where we developed, where hominoids developed. Ramapithecus was ordinarily gathering food from the plains and that, and was vegetarian, mostly cuspids and molars for vegetarian diet. Ramapithecus also had quite a bit of hair, as you could imagine the monkeys or the apes today. Their layering of fat was much more like a monkey's is today. We have a subcutaneous layer of fat under our skin, which none of the other primates do. The only other primates that have this subcutaneous layer of fat under the skin are primates, mammals that have shifted back into the sea or lived in an aquatic environment at some point. So when these seas rose, there were at least 3 times during 12 million years and 3.7 million years where the seas subsided. But anyway, let's just go to 12 million years ago. In the first period of time, the seas rose, and the Ramapithecus came to this region that's north of the Rift Valley.
Where's the Rift Valley? Northern Africa.
Okay. I think that does the Nile also? I don't know whether the Nile goes into it or not. I know. It would be interesting to look at the map to see this. You'll sense some things about this, but probably it will help remember it too. Anyway, so when these seas rose, people started to be wading much more in the shallows. Their land became less and less and less and less until there was just this region, more or less. And ordinarily they were living on quite a vegetarian diet and being able to collect food. And here now all of them, here they were in this region without very much vegetation and that. And during this period of time we were wading in the shallows, and we started to live on crustaceans and shellfish and that. And we started to develop a softer palate as a result of eating shellfish and crustaceans. And wading in the shallows, we started to lose the body hair, and we started to develop a subcutaneous layer of fat underneath our skin. To shed the water, we started to develop a schnoz. The sense of smell started to diminish to some degree, because when we were living in an aquatic environment, the sense of smell was not so important, not as important as it had been. We have a swimming reflex and a diving reflex long before we have a crawling reflex. If a child has the ability to be swimming before the age of 10 months, then this child naturally has the ability to dog paddle. Suzanne, who may be coming today, she did this little program, and actually, so she would hold her baby up and blow just a little on its face, and it would go, and then she would let baby go, and baby sometimes would go under the water, would hold its breath, and it would come up like this. So this water environment and this aquatic environment and this the eating the crustaceans led to create a softer palate. So the difference between Ramapithecus and Australopithecus, who is developing. Australopithecus appears on the scene 3.7 million years ago, and this person now is walking upright. The seas have subsided, and this person is walking upright. The major way that we would be in the water is in an upright position, because the thoracic cavity floats us, so generally when we're in the water we're in an upright position. All the four-leggeds that went back into the sea, most of them all